They named me Jesus. I don't know why. I guess my mother just liked the name, and my father, he didn't seem to care much. There's nothing wrong with the name in of itself. It's a good name, Jesus. Oh, wait a minute. Don't get me wrong. I'm not the Jesus. But the name wasn't that uncommon, and many of us were given the name of Jesus by our parents. I just happened to be one of the Jesuses living at the same time the real Jesus was living too. In fact, I think we were pretty close to the same age, I think. Now, don't misunderstand me. I never really knew the man or all that he believed in. But I did meet him once. I think I saw him once as a child, too. I can remember the scene vividly. My father and I were passing through a small village on the way to visit relatives, and there were a whole bunch of kids playing on the mud bank of a stream. And they were widely flinging mud everywhere, at homes and innocent passerbys, of which I happened to be one. And as we went on by them, I heard someone call out, "Hey, Jesus!" Well, I turned around to see who was yelling at me, and I saw this tall, lanky kid throw a mud ball at someone else. It's someone else. He threw it at a boy who was on his hands and knees, huddled over a mound of clay. The boy jerked his head to one side as the mud ball flew him past, then he looked up and laughed at his friend's poor aim. The tall, lanky kid chuckled too and went back to his other buddies. But this boy returned to concentrate on his own creation. Somehow this boy was different. Now, there he was, mud caked on his face, matted in his hair, all over his clothes, almost oblivious, it seemed, to the rest of them who were joyfully flinging mud everywhere with the innocence and abandon that only children seem to possess. I can remember the contrast of that scene. It struck me then as a child and still comes to mind even now. Here was this other Jesus right in the middle of this blissful chaos, and yet so apart and intent on accomplishing some purpose. Well, who knows? It probably wasn't the same Jesus I'd heard so much about as I was growing up. But every now and then you hear a story or a rumor about some man named Jesus and something miraculously done or something profound he had said. He said a lot. He said he was the Messiah. My mother said he was of God, and my father said he was of the devil. And I didn't say much of anything. After all, he was using my name, and it wasn't hurting my reputation any. In fact, quite the opposite. Oh, sure, people who knew me, they teased me and asked me to turn their water into wine, and we'd all laugh and chuckle at the thought. But people who didn't know me, strangers who were passing through our village, once they heard my name, they treated me differently than the ordinary person. I became someone special. Well, I didn't mind playing the part as long as they didn't find out who I really was. In fact, it came too easy. They'd ask me to bless their crops or heal their illness or bless their business. And I didn't see anything wrong with turning my namesake into a little popularity for myself. After all, aren't we all willing to be associated with some cause or figure if we think it's going to boost our own image in the eyes of others? Well, so was I. Till I happened to meet him. It was on a hillside, and there was a multitude of people. And one by one, they'd go up to him, and he'd touch them, or bless them, or just talk to them. Why not, I thought. So I casually mingled among the crowd until I saw he had a spare moment. And I went up to him, and I grabbed his hand. Well, his hand felt just like anybody else's. My name's Jesus, too. He didn't say anything. Just kept that steady gaze on me. Of course, I'm not anything like you. He smiled, and he slowly said, No, not on the inside. No, not on the inside, but I've got your name, haven't I? We have the same name. He didn't say anything else. He just kept that steady gaze on me as I stumbled backward and got myself lost in the crowd. That was the only time we ever met, but I've never forgotten it. Anyway, after that incident, I just stopped blessing people's crops and told them I wasn't the man that they thought I was. That was several years ago. I saw him one other time about 6 months ago. Again, it was on a hillside. Only this time he wasn't speaking, healing, or touching. He was dying. I don't know. I guess things must have went bad for him, I guess. You see, I never did listen to the rumors or the neighborhood gossip, though I did understand a few people gave up everything just to be with him. I wonder what they're doing now. Anyway, it was a bad one. It wasn't your typical crucifixion. People were pushing and shoving on all sides just to get closer to this man, just to watch him stumble up a hill with this death tree. They were running up to him and throwing sand in his face and grinding gravel in the raw muscle of his back where he'd been whipped. As he went up by me, I saw his face. You see, his eyes were swollen shut, and his cheeks were puffed out from being slapped so many times. And his hair and beard were literally hanging in strands from his face where people would run by and yanked and jerked on it till he ripped it from the flesh by the roots. And as the soldiers nailed flesh to wood, mothers huddled their children around them and turned their faces inward. And I watched as the soldiers raised the tree. And I winced as his hands tore when the soldiers dropped the cross into the hole they had dug to brace it up. And yet, as I looked up his face, I couldn't help but see a child again, toiling over a mound of mud. No, there was no longer mud caked on his face. But there he was, right in the middle of this mob that was jeering and spitting and cursing his name into oblivion. And yet his face remained intent on accomplishing some purpose. I didn't stick around any longer. I imagine he died rather slowly. I didn't care to watch. I'd seen enough. I hadn't thought about it until just the other day. I was going through town to get some water and heard someone behind me call out, "Jesus, Jesus." Well, instinctively, I turned around to see a small child running toward me. The instant our eyes met, he suddenly stopped. He looked up at me, terribly bewildered and confused. And he said, Are you Jesus? For a moment, I thought I felt the gaze of a man on a hill, full of power and love. And I had to tell him, no, I'm not Jesus, not on the inside. For some reason, that question continues to haunt me. I'll get over this feeling. I always do.